Okay. Hello. Welcome. I can't really believe that it's already time for another wrap up. I didn't post for a couple weeks, but man, those couple weeks flew by. Yeah, I can't believe it's April already, everybody. That doesn't sound right, but it's true. So I'm here. I'm back with a March wrap up. I read 5 books. I DNF'd. I not right now'd another book. So I'm going to talk about 6 books. I have a lot of thoughts. My God. When I am put in front of a keyboard, I can go on. Okay, so let's get into it. Thanks for joining me. The first book that I completed in the month of March is Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. When did this come out? I'm curious. Well, this came out in 2019. I wonder if it made the rounds on the old booktube at that time. I wasn't really watching back then, but I did read this I must have read it at the beginning of 2021. I don't know. I know there's a sequel that I have been meaning to read for a little while, and for some reason I just felt called to reread this. Anyway, Spin the Dawn, if you don't know, is about a girl named Maya who has to go to the Emperor's palace in her father's place when he is summoned as an imperial tailor. She actually ends up taking her brother's place because her dad is too old, and so the people picking her up are like, okay, where's your brother? Her brother was like incapacitated from serving in the war, so she ended up actually taking her brother's place. So she goes to the palace in her brother's place, she disguises herself as her brother, and she ends up having to participate in a competition against like other master tailors in order to secure this position of like imperial tailor, which would basically set her poor family for life. There is so much more to this story, but I think even the marketing acknowledged that they can't address absolutely everything, because I heard that this book was pitched as like Project Runway meets Mulan, and it is for the first part, but there is a point where things take a little bit of a turn, and at that point I feel like the marketing just kind of like falls apart. But this book has me very conflicted. Like, my main thought is that I don't like it, but I kind of love it. I love what it wants to be, but at the same time, I think it's really ambitious and it doesn't quite pull off everything that it wants to pull off. You know, when I first read it, I felt like it was one book that wanted to be 3 books, but on a reread, that's not quite right. It is like the first part, like I said already, like the first part is very distinct from the second part, and like honestly, I want the competition section gone. I didn't like the first part as much as I like the second. Like, the second part becomes this like whole fantasy adventure of her having to go collect these like 3 MacGuffins, I guess, for the Empress. Yeah, I like the second part of this book a lot better. Like, after the competition's over and Maya and the guy Eden go off to recover these 3 things that the Empress wants, that was like way more to my fantasy adventure taste, I guess. I feel like this book could have benefited a lot from cutting the whole competition section altogether, but then like, where would your marketing be? Like, where would your pitch be if you did? Because if it's Project Runway meets Mulan, then you can't cut the first section, because then that wouldn't be true at all. Just interesting to think about. I feel like I'm all over the place right now. Anyway, about part 2, which I did like I liked it, but again, I don't feel like it totally succeeded in what it wanted to do. It felt either rushed or shallow, or just something about it that I still haven't been able to identify, even on a reread, doesn't quite land. I could go on and probably repeat myself a million times. All that said, like, I just have like a love-hate relationship with this book. Like I said, I love what it wants to be. I love what it's trying to be. I don't think that it lived up even to its own promises. Like, I will say though that this book is so easy to read. Like, I'm not really a fast reader. Like I said, I read 5 books this month, and that's with audio. But Spin the Dawn goes by so fast. Like, I swear I read it in like 4 days. Just this is the love part of the love-hate relationship, is like I can't put it down. but I'm not like obsessed with it. It's so hard to explain. So that's one pro. Another pro is that the ending totally surprised me. The ending is what bumps up my rating. I would have had it at a 3, but that ending puts it at a 4. I've had the sequel on my TBR for a while, just have not gotten to it yet. But I really hope that the sequel sort of lives up to what the ending of Spin the Dawn promised, because oof, very mild and vague spoilers really quick. I love negative arcs. I haven't found very many in books. Whenever somebody asks me, the only one that I can think of is a manga, Land of the Lustrous. Oh, I would just be over the moon if I saw a negative arc in YA. I don't realistically think that that's actually gonna happen, but boy, I would love to see it. And I can pretend until I read it, right? So, Spin the Dawn gets a 4-star. I sort of almost begrudgingly give this a 4. Maybe the love part is stronger than the hate part. I don't know. On to the next one. Okay, now we have Rosewater by Tade Thompson. Rosewater is a sci-fi story. It follows Caro, who is a psychic and an agent of the Nigerian government. The city that he lives in is called Rosewater, and the city sort of sprung up around this like alien biodome, and the plot starts to happen when other psychics around the city start to die, and it seems like because they're psychic, and so Caro's got to figure out what's going on. For some reason, this one took me a long time to get through. Like, I think the world building, the character voice, the writing style, the plot are all quite good in a lot of ways, but I think for me it lacked in a lot of emotionality. Like, there wasn't very much emotional connection. Even though it's written in first person, like, Caro feels super distant still, even in the more intense scenes that didn't really get across. The writing style, the prose, is very straightforward and to the point, and it's not like, it's just very direct, which I love. I usually love that prose style, but for some reason it didn't quite click for me in this book. It didn't get any tension across. It didn't really get any characters' emotions across. And then on top of that, we have 3 different timelines, which are all different points in Caro's life. Some of it I found interesting, some of it helped me understand the story better, but just as much was either so short as to feel pointless, or just like was so rife with like military jargon and stuff like that that I couldn't connect with it. Like, military narratives I don't really do well with. So 2 of those 3 timelines, the earliest one I think is like Caro's childhood into joining this like military sort of situation, and then joining the military situation into becoming an agent of S45, which is this government body, I guess, that employs these psychics. This one has me conflicted in like a totally different way. I was quite bored by it, but I was able to finish it, and I recognize how good it is. Like, this is definitely one that is just like, okay, it's not for me. It makes me want to split my rating into 2 different ratings. I want to rate it on how good of a book it is in a technical way, but then I would give it a totally different rating if it was for my personal enjoyment. If I were only rating on personal enjoyment, I would have given it a 2 because I found it quite boring and lacking in emotional connection to the characters. But if I were to rate it on how good of a book that I think it is, just not for me, I would absolutely give it a 4. I still want to recommend it because the way that Caro's powers work is very cool. Like, I think Tade Thompson did a really fantastic job making it like scientific and very real. And I mean, there's plenty other that's good about it. I still recommend it to people who are into sci-fi and especially Afrofuturism. And also that cover. The cover is part of why I got this book in the first place. When I put it on my TBR, like God knows how long ago, I was wanting to read more sci-fi. Like, I think it was one of my first sci-fi books that I added to my TBR. But man, that cover, for some reason, it just is so nice. I love it. But anyway, all that said, for personal enjoyment, it gets a 2. For technical goodness, it gets a 4. So I'm gonna give it a 3. Yep, that's Rosewater. Okay, next one. Okay, next one, I have Star Daughter by Shweta Thakrar. To me, this book is so underrated. Man, I read a lot of YA, huh? Star Daughter is a YA fantasy about Sheetal, who is half star and half human. She has to keep her star side a secret, and in an accident, her like star powers sort of flare up, and her dad gets injured and put in the hospital, and she has to seek the help of a full star to get a drop of blood to heal him. For this, I listened to the audiobook by Sonila Nankani, and I thought it was really well done. We got distinct voices for all the characters, and I thought the acting was really good. Okay, so honestly, I was so sure that I wasn't going to like this. Like, I usually like YA, but I have been moving away from it recently, and I get the feeling that this book is targeted at even a younger age group than the kind of YA that I normally go for. I mean, the question then is, why did I even bother putting it on my TBR if I was so sure that I wasn't gonna like it? But the simple answer is that I am such a sucker for a good cover, and this cover is gorge. The art style. I found the artist on Twitter. Maybe I can pull them up again and link you all, because their portfolio is like outstanding. They've done a lot of YA covers. The art style's gorge. The gold, I mean, come on. Like, it just got me. I just couldn't not. And I figured also, like, if I got 10% in and really hated it, then I could just DNF it. It was not a big deal to at least give this book a try. And I am so glad that I did, because I feel like this book is super underrated. I was very impressed. I got some pros, I got some cons. If you want something with like impeccable celestial vibes, this is the book for you. I also enjoyed that Sheetal was already in a relationship with Dave. I feel like that's fairly unique for YA, for the main character to like already have an established relationship with the love interest. Like that, her relationship with Dave contributed a lot to the drama later on. And okay, I don't laugh at books. Like, I might chuckle at a fun turn of phrase or something, but comedy in books is just not, it doesn't land for me hardly ever. But this fucking book got me to actually laugh at like more than once. Of course it was from my library and I didn't write down like the timestamps of the parts that made me laugh, but like Sheetal had such like teenage dry humor that I don't know, something about it totally tickled me. Okay, and my biggest pro of the entire book is Sheetal's mom. Like that whole plot thread, those themes right there, like their relationship gave me such Steven Universe vibes in the best way possible. Like, you know, Sheetal is dealing with being a mix of something fantastical and also human. I guess in Steven Universe, Steven was like something new that the world had never, that the universe had never seen before. And in Star Daughter, it's like sort of implied that there are half-star children. Or not implied, actually. There was that one kid who became a full star, but also like Charumati being sort of out of touch and like behaving in like kind of dubious ways sometimes, and also the way that she is remembered as like almost this perfect being. Like, I personally took a huge amount of inspiration from the way that Rose Quartz is portrayed in Steven Universe, and I feel like this hit on a lot of those same sort of themes. And so yeah, I absolutely adored that. Okay, my cons. A competition, like it felt kind of contrived, but at the same time the story didn't focus too strongly on the actual competition, so like the other more important elements were not drowned out. Okay, everybody's here for this competition and our main character is a part of it, but her whole world didn't become the competition, which I appreciated. I mean, competition is sort of a boring trope to me, but it turned out mostly okay. You know, Sheetal, I think, is 16 in the book, maybe about to turn 16? I can't remember. She's about to turn 16 or about to turn 17, and I can't remember exactly which one. She could be like quite annoying in that like teenage kind of way. Like, my biggest gripe with her character is that I did not at all buy how mad she got at Dave for him having that dream. Like, have you heard of how sometimes one person in a partnership will have a dream that the other partner is cheating on them, and then in real life the person who had the dream will be mad at their partner for what happened in the dream? Like, Sheetal got mad at Dave for having a dream. He was not part of what she learned about in this special dream. It was just so, like, that might be simplifying it a little bit, but in the middle of reading, that is literally what it felt like. Like, she got mad at him because he had a dream. Little ridiculous. But like, honestly, overall, like I said, this book totally impressed me. It was a really sweet story. The ending was fine. I'm gonna give it a 4. Okay, now one of the ones. Oh my gosh. Okay. Woo! Oh my god. Can we see that okay? This book, y'all. I ordered this box set of paperbacks off of Thrift Books, and it literally just came in the afternoon that I'm filming this, so I'm like so excited to be able to hold it. Oh my god. Okay, so I am so sad that it took me so long to read this. This came out in 2015. This book is no secret, I know, but if you are watching this and you have not read this and you like fantasy, you like epic fantasy, if you like dark fantasy, if you like fantasy at all, you need to read this. I mean, check your trigger warnings. Shit gets pretty dark at a couple of points. It does not get so dark that it feels relentless. Please read it. So, the 5th season. We have 3 points of view. The first one is a mother whose daughter is missing and whose son has passed away. We have a young girl who is given up by her parents to the government for the powers that she possesses. And then we have a young woman who is a member of that government order. The story is set in a world where earthquakes and volcanic eruption are a common occurrence, and particularly bad ones basically end the world. Okay, what is there even to say about this book? Oh my gosh. Honestly, I don't even feel worthy to give my opinion on this. I mean, this book is just on another level. If you have not read this, you might think that you're familiar with how multiple POVs work in fiction. This book says, oh no, come here. I will show you what can be done with multiple POVs. Like, if you feel like you read a lot of fantasy and you know in-depth world building, like the world building here is like grown from literal soil. Like, I have never read a book this evocative, not just in the text, but everything about the ambiance, the aesthetic, the subtext is so completely just earthy, and literally every adjective that you can think of to describe like dirt and rocks and stone and earth, this book is. I'm trying to think of when exactly the story hooked me, because it did take a little bit. That is my one thing with this book, is that it opens on some sort of long-winded exposition and context that it just feels a little bit much for the first chapter of a fantasy novel. But now that I've finished it, I really want to go back and reread it so that I can pin down what the hell they're talking about. I think for me, once I read a chapter from all 3 of the POVs, I was hooked. The world building alone will pull you in, like, let alone the characters. And this is a character driven story. I realized at like the 85% mark that, oh, this is more character than plot. And I think I've probably said before that I normally like plot better than characters. Like, I prefer a strong plot over strong characters, but this is changing my perceptions in so very many ways. I do have a little bit of a sad anecdote that doesn't really have much to do with the review, but I actually spoiled myself on like one of the big twists of this book. I wanted to look up a term. The term was not in the appendix, and I went Googling like Boo Boo the Fool, and I got spoiled. But it was a very hard spoiler to avoid because it's literally in the synopsis for book 2. If you have not read this and you're coming to this book as blind as I did, don't Google anything. Just don't do it. If there's a word in there that you don't know what it is, check the appendix. If the word is Taurus, just don't worry about it, okay? Just don't worry about it, because that is the word that I was trying to figure out. I don't know why that word isn't in the appendix, because that word, like, it's a word in our world, but it means something in this world that it doesn't mean in our world. So just don't worry about it. Like, if you come across it and you're like, I don't know what that is, just wait a little bit. It'll come together. It's also not that important to know exactly what a Taurus is, okay? Don't Google anything. I swear to God. I'm very sad that I got spoiled on this, but honestly, even with the spoilers, the ending and the twist, like, still completely blew me away. Dee Dee, what are you doing? Wah. Come on, so I can have you say hi to the camera. Hi, Dee Dee. Okay, fine. The other thing I will say is that if you are not going totally blind into this book, the one thing that it has that I know puts some people off is second person. One of the POVs is in second person. Oh, let me read you an example. Okay, this is from page 20, so it's not going to be a spoiler at all. But I'm going to read so that if you don't know, so you get what I mean by second person. Lerna licks his lips, looks up at you, then away. He's the other one besides your children who knows what you are. He's known for a while, but this is the first time he's been confronted by the actuality of it. You can't really think about that either. That's just one paragraph, but it's the pronoun that is used is not he or she or they and so on. It is you. All that said, I know that second person can put some people off of a book. Like, speaking of which, random aside, has anybody read The Raven Tower? I think that book is entirely in second person, and I think I tried to read it last year, but I put it down because I wasn't liking the second person. But now that I've read this, I want to try it again, but I don't know if it's any good. I gotta look at that again. Anyway, if you know that this book has parts in second person and you don't want to read it because of that, please trust me. I promise it means something. It's not just there for flavor. There is a concrete reason why Essen's chapters are in second person, and the reveal is so good. If you can find it in you at all to read this despite the second person, I strongly encourage you to do so. It's so worth it. I don't know what else to say about this book. It is a literal work of genius. It is the most cohesive and thorough fantasy that I have read in I don't even know how long. Like I said, I bought this paperback box set. I have the other ones. I'm like jumping on those ASAP. I'm absolutely gonna buy this in hardback at some point. It's just so good. Like, you don't need me to tell you this. You already know this. It has awards. Every single book in the series has awards. Like, Jemison is a hero. Like, you don't need me to tell you to read this. Just go read it. It gets 5 stars. Okay, my last book that I read. You know, I think I'm on a little bit of a hot streak because I have another 5-star read. This is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. I read this for a special little reading vlog that I'm working on, so I'm probably gonna end up repeating myself, but I don't really want to assume that like everybody's gonna see this video and that video. And it's also gonna take me quite a while to get that vlog out because the last book that I need to read for it still has like a 16-week wait. Oh, let me take a screenshot of that on my phone. Okay, so it's actually 13 weeks, but whatever. If you've used Libby, you know that the wait is probably not actually going to be 13 whole weeks, but I'm still like 21st in line, so it's going to be a while for that last one. So anyway, the vlog is coming out later, so I'm just going to say, I'm not going to hold back. I'm just going to say my thoughts because this book was absolutely incredible. I loved it. So, The Jasmine Throne is about Priya, who is a maidservant who comes from a powerful background. It's also about Malini, who is an exiled princess. It's about a few other people as well. We have a good amount of POVs in this book. I'm not sure I'm going to do a great job explaining the story, but in sort of vague terms, it's about a culture trying to gain independence from the empire that almost crushed it. It's about Malini, the princess, trying to escape unjust imprisonment. It's about a lot of stuff around those two things as well, but honestly that's about as well as I'm gonna be able to summarize it. The whole book is somewhat heavy on like court politics, which again, I feel like I've said this a couple times during this video, but I don't super connect well with political narratives. My cat is here. Hey, come here. Now it's your turn to say hello. You don't want to say hello, look at you. Yeah, you're okay. Yeah, you're okay. Okay. Yep. Because it's like kind of heavy on the politics, a lot of finer details might have went over my head, but the events that result from those politics still made perfect sense. So I must have like absorbed what was being talked about in the like political scenes. I didn't need to remember the fine details for it to make sense. My only other gripe is that I had a hard time picturing the temple, the Hirana, for some reason. Like, I partially blame myself because I was listening to the audiobook. Maybe I got interrupted like the very first time that it was described or something, because I had a hard time picturing it. And it's a temple, right? But then there was this chasm, and like the maidservants had to like ascend it using this guide rope, and it was really slippery or something. And I didn't quite understand why that was. And then like the way that it was talked about in later parts of the book was sort of confusing. The narration would say, upon the Hirana, walking upon the Hirana. And I don't think that you would normally talk about a building that way. I understand that it was like sort of magical and it changed shape around Priya. Like I get all that, but I found it confusing for some reason. I think I've said before, I normally don't have any issues picturing things, but the Hirana in general just sort of confused me. Why is that the place for Malini to be imprisoned at? I get that it has like some sort of poetic meaning because it's where all of the temple people were burned in the past. So yeah, I sort of struggled with that, but everything else about this book, the prose style and everything was very immersive. The characters, oh my gosh, like the character work is outstanding. I absolutely loved Priya. She is a lot like one of my own characters in one of the stories that I'm writing. So maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I absolutely love her. Like she's compassionate and kind, but still willing to fight, and yet reserved and controlled. Her evolution was particularly incredible to me, but Malini's evolution in this was also fantastic. The conflict between Priya and Malini earlier on was so organic, and it just made so much sense. One thing that I believe about stories is that it sounds kind of ridiculous to say, and now I'm like sort of backing off of it, but I really feel like there are very few ways for a story to go as long as you have your world, your characters, and your plot very solid and consistent. But that's how I feel about the Jasmine Throne, is that the way that it is constructed is so rock solid that I can't see this story going any other way. And that is highly commendable. Like that is such a hard thing to pull off. That's part of why fan fiction is a thing at all, is because like a story went a way that the reader didn't want it to. Even, spoilers again, even the way that Malini and Priya's relationship ends up at the end of this book makes 100% sense to me. It could not have gone any other way. I'm just very impressed by that. Anyway, moving on. Honestly, I was pretty sure that this book would be a 4-star until the last couple of chapters. When we get that reveal from Rao, that was kind of the point where I knew that it would be a 5. It is so, I really want to reread it again, like right away, since I bought the ebook especially, but I can't. I have to hold back, I guess. But I will definitely be rereading it before the sequel comes out in August. I know Tasha Suri already has a few books published, but what she has done here is just simply outstanding. It's like the fifth season is genius for its in-depth world building and the way that the twists work, but this book is genius for how utterly solid the foundation is, but not just the foundation, the scaffolding, like the structure of it is almost perfect to me. This book was incredible. I absolutely gave it a 5. I'm so glad I got 2 5-stars this month. Oh my gosh. Last year, out of 47 books, I had 5 5-stars, and 3 of those were rereads. So I'm just elated. Okay, for my next trick, I have my one DNF of the month. It's sort of hovering between a DNF and an NRN, a not right now, and it is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I did not get attached to this book at all. I recognize that this book is very highly praised for being very like aesthetic, for being about the vibes, right? I totally get that. I see the aesthetic that this book is going for. I totally see what it's trying to do. I just don't feel it. Like I don't connect with that aesthetic. Nothing about it feels cozy or warm to me, even though I know that that is part of what it was going for. I didn't connect with the imagery. It was very like Alice in Wonderland, and it was a very American Gods. And if you've read American Gods, I didn't really like American Gods either. I'm not saying that the Starless Sea is bad at all. Like, I can tell that it's like Erin Morgenstern has done something very unique and interesting and good in its way, but I was listening to the audiobook and it was really cool because it has multiple actors and everybody's great, but I got to like the 30% mark and I would go to turn it on and I would look at it and I would be like, in my head I would think, I don't want to read this, which I kind of feel bad about because like I know a lot of people really love this book. I think just right now it's not for me. Maybe one day I will try to pick up the Starless Sea again, but this month it is a no-go for me. Hi there, this is Editing Asia. I realized that for whatever reason, I did not film a proper outro. So I'm here to just thank you so very much for joining me in this video. I know it's a long one, it kind of surprised me too. Turns out I'm a little bit of a windbag. I really do appreciate you joining me though. And if you give me a subscribe, that would be so incredible. I would really appreciate it. And take care, and I will see you all in the next one.